Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. For today's webinar, we are going to be discussing Fronius digital tools. So joining me today is David Mongi, who's the Technical Sales Advisor for Eastern Africa, and it will be myself also giving the presentation. I'm Byron Kutzer, and I'm the Technical Sales Advisor for the Southern African region for Fronius. In today's agenda, we'll be covering Fronius Solar Start, which is our commissioning app, as well as Solar Web. So the Solar Web demo, which is our monitoring platform, as well as our Fronius Solar.SOS, which is our troubleshooting how to guide tool, as well as our data logger finder, as well as Solar Service, and as well as at the end, further information which can be provided and obtained. Before we start, please feel free to ask questions during the webinar using the chat function, and as well as to please give your input during the webinar on how you found the webinar itself. So to start off, Solar Start, which is known as our Fronius commissioning app. So it's used for the commissioning of our Fronius Gen 24 Plus, our Fronius Taro series, as well as any data manager obtaining snap inverter. So that's anything from the Primo, Simo, and Eco inverters, as well as the commissioning of the data manager box 2.0. So that is the external data manager card that can be externally mounted at for the system itself, as well as the commissioning of our older Fronius IG Plus inverters. So there's no monitoring inside the app itself. So this will be a direct link, excuse me, to your Solar Web account or the inverter's web interface for monitoring itself. So it's an easy Wi-Fi connection for the commissioning. So you will, without the need of accessing your Wi-Fi settings itself, as well as allows for your easy connection to the web interface for monitoring and changing settings. So any settings that need to be adjusted on the inverter itself, as well as if you have a Fronius Home Pilot in the system. Again, it is directly linked to SOS and the installer support tools with the Fronius Solar Start, as well as doing any product registration later on in SolarWeb is also achievable. So this is how the Fronius app typically looks. So this is what will be displayed on your phone itself. You'll then access the app and you'll be then broadcasted to our landing page. So from here you can do a start installation or log in. So on the landing page, there are two ways to get started. As mentioned, there's the start installation. So this means you'll have to do no login requirements in order to start commissioning the product. So if you don't have a SolarWeb account or you're just commissioning the product, you don't need to log in and you can simply then start the commissioning process. Whereas if you want to log in with your Fronius credentials through the IAM functionality, this allows you for more options available when logged in. And also it's important a reminder that after starting the app, the Wi-Fi reminder will pop up to connect to the inverter, which is important to have the Wi-Fi activated on it. Next step will be the setup page. So this is where you'll then select the product at which you are commissioning. So in this case, it can either be a Gen 24 Plus and Taro unit, or the snap inverters, which is commissioning of the data manager itself and not the inverter, as the inverter's commissioning is done through the inverter display or a Reservo card, as also mentioned, as well as doing any of the external cards, so as well as the data manager box 2.0, or doing an older Fronius inverter as the IG Plus, is then also doing the commissioning of that device's data manager. You'll also receive a reminder for the GPS. So this setting will pop up on screen, and this is necessary to search for any SSIDs, so any enabled Wi-Fi connection points. For the app itself, you'll need three main permissions. So you'll need the camera, which is to scan for the data matrix, location, which is used for the searching of the SSID with the Wi-Fi itself, and as well as storage for any downloads of PDF files and documents. For example, if you want to download your country setup file, as well as doing any offline updates on the devices. So next we'll cover is a typical example when doing the commissioning via Solar Start with a Fronius snap inverter. So on the snap inverter, we'll then do the data manager setup. So this is again the commissioning of the inverters still has to be done via that inverter display or servo card. You'll then need to do, there will be a short introduction how to open the Wi-Fi access point over the display itself. So you'll go into the inverter, then under setup, Wi-Fi access point, and then you'll enable that Wi-Fi access point on the snap inverter itself. If you are commissioning other products, such as the data manager box, the external box, or the Fronius IG Plus inverters, you'll then need to select other. Next, you'll then have a menu overview. So from here, we can do the start commissioning. So this immediately boots up the app itself into a commissioning wizard for the data manager. So for the snap inverter in this example, you'll then receive a wizard that states technical wizard and solar web wizard. You can also do product registration, which then boots you into our product registration that is available on Solar Web. So this is for monitoring only and not for the connecting the inverter to Solar Web. So this is done during the commissioning, as well as the inverter web interface. So this is for easy access of the inverter's web interface for further settings and monitoring. So this is known as the access point has to be activated, or a connection to the same network has to be established. You can also achieve the Ohm Pilot web interface. So this is for allow for easy access to the Ohm Pilot web interface for further settings or adjustments that need to be achieved, as well as linking you to the SOS in external browsers, as well as our support tools. So this is a link to Fronius's homepage, which is open in an external browser also. And this allows you to have access into Fronius manuals, how-to guides, our latest software and updates, as well as webinars, data sheets, and certificates for that inverter itself, as well as settings. So this is for any further information that is required. Next we'll be covering is a typical example of the setting up of a Gen 24 and Taro unit. As the Taro and Gen 24 series inverters have a already embedded communication card, which is also known as our pilot card, you will not have to retrofit a data manager into the system. So for commissioning, we'll have to do an automatic connection. So for this, we need to activate the Wi-Fi access point of the inverter. So you'll hold your finger over the light sensitive button that is displayed on the middle of the inverter for 1 to 2 seconds. And as soon as the light is then flashing blue, we have now enabled the Wi-Fi access point. We will then need to go to manual connections if you want to manually search for the connection of the SSID of the inverter. If automatic connection fails or on an iOS device, you can scan the data matrix code on the side of the inverter to then boot you into the commissioning process. So again, this is why the camera permissions is necessary for scanning purposes of the data matrix code. Next, for setup in the Wi-Fi settings, so if scanning for automatic connection fails, again, you can enter the manual network searching. So if this is when you want to search for the SSID of the inverter itself and then establish that connection. So once you have found it, as mentioned, it will be Fronius followed by the serial number for Gen 24. You will then enter the password 12345678, and then that will allow you to then gain access onto the commissioning process. Again, for the commissioning of the Fronius Gen 24 and Taro. So after you have successfully connected, you then have the commissioning wizard is then started. So this is either Further information for the commissioning process of the Gen 24 and Taro can be found in our video on YouTube itself. Please do search for Gen 24 Plus commissioning, or by following this link below, we'll then have you a detailed guide on how to do the commissioning process for Gen 24 and Taro. Next is Fronius SolarWeb. So SolarWeb is our monitoring and analysis platform. So it gives you complete overview and extensive control of the PV system anytime and anywhere. So this is due to it being available as a desktop version, so www.solarweb.com, as well as available as a phone app version. So this is available for iOS devices such as Apple, or on the Google Play Store itself for Android phones. So what are the requirements to use SolarWeb? So if you have a Fronius snap inverter series, so this is a Primo Simon air-core inverter series, you will require a data manager 2.0, as well as a Fronius smart meter, and then a connection, active connection through the internet to then have the data exported to our monitoring platform known as SolarWeb. The same would be if you are using a Fronius Gen 24 Plus. So as the communication card is already integrated into the unit, you'll only require a smart meter in the system as well as an active connection to then have the data exported out into SolarWeb. So the energy balance and yield comparison. So this allows you to do daily energy balance as well as monthly and yearly comparisons at any time and anywhere. So from here, you can backdate the current information that is available on the system itself, as well as comparing if you are needing to do some maintenance on the modules. For example, if you see that your PV production is low, or if there is another problem with the units, this is a great way to determine what exactly is the issue. So SolarWeb functions, so you can do the registration of your PV system. So this allows you to do attractive warranty packages for individual customer requirements. So if a customer wants to extend a warranty, for example, this will allow you to do that extension through SolarWeb itself. You can also do system overviews. So again, the performance and functionality of the system is then greatly monitored and analyzed through SolarWeb itself. You can also do data analysis, so you can generate reports and realize extensive views and comparisons. So you can generate reports on a daily, monthly, and annually basis. You can either export them as CSV or Excel format, as well as doing consulting. So this will allow you to do provisions of 100% of the customer support through SolarWeb itself and using as a service tool. SolarWeb also allows you to do a system extension, so the system adaptations and possibilities for following further business. So next is adding your PV system to SolarWeb. So most importantly is to always have an existing account. So please do create the SolarWeb account first and then upload your system onto SolarWeb. So there's two possibilities. So the one is through the SolarStart app itself, or by adding it on SolarWeb desktop version. The next is SolarWeb for remote service. So with SolarWeb, we have different permissions in SolarWeb itself. So we've got owner, supervisor, and guest protocols. So with owner, you can change any settings that are available on SolarWeb, as well as to delete the entire system. Where supervisor has similar rights to the owner, so they can adjust tariffs, for example, generate reports, but they cannot delete the system itself. Whereas guests can only simply view and monitor the system. They cannot do basic changes, as well as not deleting the system itself. As well as with SolarWeb, you can also do firmware updates. So this allows you to do a remote update itself from the comfort of your own home to then do a remote update on the site. So it's simply with one click, You can update the data managers, as well as your pilot card for the Gen 24 Plus series or Taros, as well as doing any firmware updates on your own pilot in the system. With SolarWeb with a remote service, you also get our message center. So this is for any service messages, as well as it gives you a brief description on the service message itself, and also states the state code that the unit has experienced at the moment. So if it throws out an error, for example, it will then show you the error code that should be displayed on the unit, as well as what could be a brief description of what to rectify that issue itself. It also allows you to do a data comparison. So this allows you to do real-time data, as well as do a backdraft history, and as well as doing an energy balance of the system itself. So next, I'll be covering a SolarWeb demo. So on SolarWeb, this is the typical screen that would be displayed. So here we can see our current power. So we can see that we are utilizing 6% of utilization, but that's just due to our current consumption only being 95% of the PV system itself. From here, we can do a full analysis. So we can monitor the system itself and see if the performance is within the recommended range. We can also do a backdate on the history. So from here, we can select the device if we want to do a backdate on, as well as any selection of the channels that we want to analyze. So if we want to analyze the DC current, so monitor the 2, for example. So from here, we can fully monitor the current of the 2 MPPTs on the inverter itself. So this just helps us to determine if there are any errors with the issue with the systems. So if it's a module issue related, or if it's AC reference related, we can then determine what exactly is the issue. We can next do is the energy balance. So here we can see a production graphs, for example. So here we can see the full SOC of the battery itself in the system, as well as the consumption directly, and as well as our total consumption for the system itself. We can then set it to a consumption graph. So here we can see exactly how much power we are drawing from the grid or pushing power into the grid, for example, as well as again our power from the battery and also our SOC of the battery itself. Again, we can backdate this history. So we can go by monthly or yearly. Again, it depends on how long the system is running, and this allows us to go fully back into the system to analyze if it is still currently performing as it was intended. Next is for generating of reports, for example. So if we want to create a new report, so again, here we can do on PV production itself, as well as our energy balance total, or if we have our SolarWeb Premium feature, we can then do a custom generated report. So again, this allows us to as CSV format or MS Microsoft Excel. We can do daily sums or detailed values, as well as we can give it a report name. And we can also do a generation type, whether it being manual or automatic. So if you have a client that wants to see PV production followed by the total DC power that's generated for the month, you can have an automatic monthly report generate and email to the client itself. As well as if we want to do custom, we can have all the channels available for custom reports itself. And if we have temperature sensors, for example, or irradiance sensors, we can also generate that data and then export it into the report itself. Next is under service messages. So here you'll have a brief description of what exactly occurred with the unit itself. So here, for example, we've got error 999. So this is stating that it was an inverter blackout detection. So this is SolarWeb did not receive the log data within a user-defined period. So this normally the unit will update every 5 minutes. So it was outside of that window, and that is why it then picked up the error. Next, under the settings tabs, we can always go back and change the system name, as well as any detailed information that is required on the system itself. We can then add an image to the system itself, so we don't get confused between which systems are which in our SolarWeb homepage, as well as the adding of any contacts to the system itself. So if you want to add a contact to receive reports or receive service messages, this is the email address that you would enter, for example. Next, under components, so this is where we'll do our remote updates, for example. So we will then select to then do an update for if we're wanting to do an update, as well as we can view if our energy meter has been detected by the system and is outputting the data, and as well as what inverters are available in the system and if there are any updates. If we have an existing site, so for this site, for example, and we are adding another Gen 24 or a device with the data manager, we will then go under components, then go new device and go under add. And we will then select if it is a data manager, Gen 24 Taro, or if it is a watt pilot, so our EV charging solution. So if it is a data manager, it would be, for example, 240 followed by the 6-digit number that appears after that, which is then entered in. And then we can add further systems to, or further inverters to the system itself. Next, under permissions, so this is where you'll then assign a dedicated supervisor or guest role to a client or a technician that needs to do any further application work to the system itself. Under tariff, so this is where you can then do a general tariff itself with the feed-in tariff without the Fronius smart meter, as well as a reference tariff. Or if you are allowed to feed back into the grid, you can then do a feed-in tariff with this Fronius smart meter as a reference point. So again, as ownership, you can do change of owner or physically delete the entire system itself. So that is SolarWeb. My colleague David Monkey will now be presenting further.
All right, thank you, Byron. I will now take over and continue with the rest of the presentation. And starting off with Solar Online Support, or what we commonly refer to as SOS. So what is Fronius Solar Online Support? So this is basically a fast and informative, as well as easy to use app, and is intended for technicians as well as customers for ease of service. It's available 24/7. So this means that as opposed to the normal procedure where you might need to call or write an email to tech support, you have the availability of all the information you need as a technician or a customer on your phone, or you can also use the desktop version, but we will get to that later. So you can do a query of data as well as warranty information for any particular device that you're using. You can also do or check the case history as well as the troubleshooting that you have carried out for a particular inverter or device. If you have initiated the next stage process, you can track this within the SOS. And so therefore, SOS is a tool or an app that is very highly recommended if you are an installer of Fronius devices, because it gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of how you manage your troubleshooting or any cases that you have launched with Fronius tech support. So how then does the SOS app look like? It basically comes in two versions, just like what has been discussed with Solar Start. So you have the app, the phone version, as well as the desktop version. And for the phone, depending on which phone then you're using, you download from the respective app store for both the Android and iPhones. And then once you have it installed, you basically are going to activate the app and then go into the landing page of the SOS. When it comes to the desktop version, then you have the availability to access the troubleshooting platform by accessing solar-sos.fronius.com. And then here you need login credentials. So once you enter this into your web browser, this web address, it comes to the landing page where then you need to enter your login credentials. And once you enter your login credentials, you will go to the landing page of the troubleshooting platform. So just to go very quickly over the key features of the SOS app. So we have a digital registration process, and this basically means that you do not need to write any paperwork. So everything is 100% digital. No written declaration of consent is required. And using the Fronius IM registration platform, you can basically use the same credentials that you have for SolarWeb as an example to log into SOS. In addition to that, you can also do account switching as an additional feature within SOS. And this basically means that as an installer or a technician, you are able to manage multiple accounts, and this can be done anytime and anywhere. As an example, you could be an installer or a technician working for two companies. And in these two companies, you have two customers, that is customer A and B. And therefore, within the profile section of SOS, you can actually switch from company 1 to company B easily and check which cases that you have launched for each of the respective companies. Also, the SOS app makes troubleshooting very, very easy, and therefore increases usability and gives you step-by-step instructions for a successful service process. So at the end of the service process, if then you have achieved a good result in terms of being able to troubleshoot the errors and rectify them, then you have the option to click on that this process has been successful. If not, then you can directly also contact tech support within the SOS app. You also get push notifications as well as messages that are relevant for your particular cases or inverters. So this means that you can send important data directly to your smartphone. It includes available updates. We have news, errors, as well as fault messages. So all this can be retrieved within the SOS app. In-app communication as another feature for SOS means that you can directly communicate with Fronius tech support within the app. So this is by way of message chats. And therefore, in addition to that, when you are communicating with Fronius tech support, you are able to also attach pictures and other attachments that are related to any fault condition that you're discussing. For example, tech support could ask you to send an image of a damaged PC board, and therefore within SOS you can directly attach this kind of documents or pictures to help tech support to provide better support to you. So therefore this is a very simple communication path as well as a notification platform for all your conversations with Fronius tech support. You can also view delivery information. So this is another app feature for SOS. So if you have ordered any spare parts, you are able to see, what is the likely lead time. So you can also have an overview of all the shipped spare parts as well as exchange inverters. Basically, this means that within with the use of SOS, you have better time management. Therefore, you can plan your work better. So you do not have to keep on worrying about or making phone calls to find out when a certain spare part is going to be available to you from Fronius. So everything then can be tracked accurately within SOS. Then also in SOS, we have a rich here, let's say, archive of materials. So this includes manuals and videos. So there are a lot of installation instructions and manuals, service instructions, additional documents, as well as short installation clips. And we also have a direct link from SOS to the Fronius YouTube channel. So from SOS, you can get a lot of useful information, not only for troubleshooting, but also for self-education to learn more about Fronius products and solutions. Importantly, for troubleshooting purposes within SOS, you are able to have a case overview. And these cases can be filtered, for instance, based on the time period. And therefore, you can have an overview of all the current as well as the past cases, as you can see here to the right. So all the cases can be accessed at the click of a button to see, for instance, for a particular site or inverter, how many times have you initiated a particular case based on the different state codes that you have been receiving from that particular inverter. You also get to view device data, and this can be queried directly in SOS as well. So therefore, what you can see directly is the warranty condition. Have you fully registered that particular device to the required warranty? And here I would like to mention that recently we have actually increased the warranty period for all inverters up to 10 kilowatt. So up to 12 kilowatts, sorry. So they are going to be receiving 10 years of warranty going forward. But the bigger devices from up to now 100 kilowatt Tauro, you still maintain the 5 years warranty on registration in Fronius SolarWeb. But of course, you can do a warranty extension, which is then a paid up service beyond the free period that is provided by Fronius. So in terms of the device data, you can also see in SolarWeb which system this inverter is being used. So directly in SOS, you can see the SolarWeb system name where this particular inverter has been installed. So let's now try to do a quick demo for SOS, just to show you very quickly how this looks like. So once you have activated or typed in the web address, you come to the landing page, and then from the landing page, you do need then to enter your username as well as password, after which you log in. And once the authentication process is completed, you then can access the troubleshooting platform. So for troubleshooting purposes, all you need is actually the serial number of an inverter. And in this case, I have a serial number here that you can use, which is 294837713. And once you type this in, the platform is able to tell you which product group or inverter type you're using. And in this case, it's actually a Primo 3 to 8 inverter. The next thing that you need for troubleshooting purposes is an error code. So you could have received in SolarWeb a particular error code, as mentioned already by Byron. You have the service messages section in SolarWeb. So if you are not able to directly determine what is the cause of that error code, you can come to SOS with the serial number, and with this state code, then you enter the state code here, like for instance 408, and then once you click on enter, it will be able to tell you what is the likely cause of this error condition. So the likely cause for error 408, for example, is too high DC voltage injection measured in the public power grid. So this is very, very important because as you know, most string inverters nowadays are transformerless. And therefore it means that there is no galvanic isolation between the DC and the AC side. And therefore, these transformerless inverters must be able to integrate what we refer to as the RCMU circuit. So this monitors how much of the DC component of the production is jumping over to the AC side, that is feeding side. So, and therefore, if this DC component goes above a certain threshold, this error code is going to be sent automatically to SolarWeb. And in most cases, the inverter will shut down. And if this is just a temporary condition, as we can see here, being a temporary condition or disruption to the grid, the inverter will wait for an automatic restart. So another possible cause could be that the software application or the firmware of the inverter is quite old, and therefore the recommended solution here, as you can see, would be to run the latest software update. Possibility number 3 would be a power stack defect, and therefore it means that you have to replace, for instance, the Primo OPS board. So this is something then you can initiate directly in SOS to request for an exchange of this particular board. Another possible error cause for this particular code will be a power stack defect. So when it comes to power stack defect, as a last resort, you have to replace the entire inverter. But you can see that before you come to the replacement of the whole inverter, then you have several steps that you have followed to try to troubleshoot and clear up this particular error. So as I mentioned, you can also quickly be able to see, so here you can see that before moving on, you are being asked whether your error has been resolved. So in this case, I can say my error is resolved. So as mentioned, you can check historically the error, the cases that you have launched. So here you can search for a particular error. You can also search for open, closed, or pending. So if you, for instance, click on all, you are able to see a chronological order of all the cases that you have launched for this particular account. Any closed cases, you can also see them. And then any pending cases can also be listed. As mentioned before, very important here, you can also check whether your inverter is fully registered for full free warranty. So if you enter again the serial number 294837113, then you're able to see whether this inverter has the fully warranty activated. So you can see the Fronius warranty for this particular inverter is valid until 2025. The system name, as we said in SolarWeb, you're able to see, and then the data logger ID where this inverter is being connected to, you can also directly see this here. Exchange process, you can also initiate the exchange of a particular part of the inverter. All you need then here is the state code. For instance, we used state code 408. And once you enter here, you are able to do quite a number of things. Serial number, so 294837113. And therefore, this then allows SOS to list for you all the spare parts that are applicable for this particular inverter. And depending on the exact state code that you have been troubleshooting for, then you can check, for instance, a particular board that needs to be replaced. For instance, the print board Primo OPS. So this is pre-tested, and you can then order the required number of boards within SOS. So once you have selected this, for instance, then you can click on continue, and this directly communicates to Fronius tech support that you have initiated an exchange process that requires this particular board for the inverter. But in this case, we are not going to go all the way. So the download section, you just basically also here enter the serial number, the same serial number, 294837113, 294. 83713. Okay, so unfortunately we are not able to get something there, but normally you should be able to get something. Another very useful feature of the SOS is the recovery key that you can generate. Let's assume you are commissioning an inverter, or you're going to recommission an inverter that has been installed somewhere else, and you have somehow forgotten the various passwords, either the admin, the user password, the technician, or the customer password, depending on the inverter that you're using. So with SOS, then you are able to reset the particular password that you have forgotten. So for the data manager, all you need then is the data logger ID that you need to enter here. And then you also need to specify the account type that you want to reset the password for. Is it the user, admin, or the service password? So this pin is actually retrieved or gotten from the inverter web user interface itself. So once you click on the forgot password section of the inverter web user interface, there is a particular pin that is generated for you there. And this is the same pin that you come and enter here. So with all these details entered here, then you can generate a recovery key. So once you have the recovery key generated, you then go back to the inverter web user interface, and with this recovery key, you are able to then reset the particular password that you had forgotten. So as mentioned, then this can be done for both the snap inverters with the data manager, as well as the Gen24 and Tauro with the pilot communication cards. So you can also access a lot of news within the SOS platform. So whenever you have time, please have a look. And there is a lot of useful information in SOS for you. So let's go back to the main presentation and continue with the data log finder. So that was a very brief overview of the SOS platform. So with the data log finder, this particular software application is developed for you to be able to find inverters that are in the same network as your laptop, as an example. So if you have an installation for which you're not very familiar with the data manager IDs and stuff like that, you can actually use the data logger finder, and you're able to easily retrieve the IP address as well as the web user interface of a particular inverter. So this software application is free of charge and can be downloaded from the Fronius website. So if you follow this link that is provided here, then you go to the downloads section of the Fronius website, and from there you're able to download and install this application in your laptop. So how to use the program? You basically, once you have downloaded and installed, you click on search. The program then searches for all Fronius inverters. All inverters that have been found with the data manager will appear. And then from there, you can select whichever you are interested in. And then once you click on a particular Fronius data manager ID, it will automatically take you to the web user interface. So this is the landing page of the web user interface. From there, you can see just quickly what is the production like of that particular inverter. Another very useful app or software application is what we refer to as the Solar service or Solar.SOS. And what is Solar.SOS? So this software application provides a whole range of useful information about your photovoltaic system or your PV installation. So it's another way of monitoring your system if you're not connected to Fronius SolarWeb. And this information is quite helpful to both the installer as well as Fronius tech support during troubleshooting processes. Just like the data logger finder, this software application, Solar.SOS, can be downloaded for free from the Fronius website. So if you follow this IP address that is given here, then you're able to download this software application and install it in your phone. So for analysis, configuration, as well as servicing, you can do quite a lot of things at a glance. So you can have a quick overview of the system. You can see the system status of all the components that are connected to that particular communication loop. You have a clear visualization and easy pointing of defects. So like I mentioned, if you're not connected to Fronius SolarWeb, you can use the Fronius.service software application for pinpointing defects within your installation. It will be able to tell you important inverter functions. Also, all inverter settings can be accessed, and then all the state codes, just like mentioned, you are able to view them at a glance. What are the advantages then of using the Solar.service application? You are going to save time and money, of course. Then it's very convenient and a very efficient way of monitoring locally what is going on with your installation. How do you then connect your system to Solar.service? So once you have downloaded the software application and installed it in your laptop, there are two ways to do this. So you can connect via LAN. Of course, you need to be in the same network or through Wi-Fi. So once you have an established connection, then the Solar.service in your laptop should be able to find any inverter, Fronius inverter within this network. So to start, then you just click on the menu, start menu. Then you can refresh the connection if you have not found what you required. So you just click on number 2 for refresh. Then we can see all the connections that are available. Then once you have established one or you have not found one, then you can also additionally click on add connection for you to add another or to connect to another inverter. So as step number 5, you have to enter, to be able to search for this inverter, you just enter the name of the inverter as well as the address. So address here means the IP address or the host name. And then once this is done, you simply click on the add button, which is step number 7 here. With this done, you are able to see all the Fronius components that are within this particular installation. So it could be a data manager and all the inverters that are connected to this data manager. It will also tell you briefly what is the operational state, whether there is an error or not. So it will tell you within the display of the solar service display. So with the solar service, there is one particular special use case that every installer needs to know about. So if you plan to, for instance, build a weather station using the Fronius sensor card or the sensor box, you do need actually the solar service application for you to be able to commission the sensor card as well as carry out sensors calibration. So as you know, you can have the irradiation sensor, the temperature sensor, and all the sensors. There are about 4 sensors that can be connected to the Fronius sensor card or sensor box. And for you to be able to commission this setup, then you must have the Solar.service software application. So basically, it will allow the communication between the sensor card and the data manager within the inverter to be established. And therefore, that once this is commissioned, the sensor box is able to channel its information through the data manager within the inverter, and then onwards to Fronius monitoring platform. So before we come to the end of the webinar today, I would like to give you some further information. So where can you get Fronius products and spare parts? So all Fronius products and spare parts are offered through our distribution channels or our sales partners, as we refer to them. And for Sub-Saharan Africa, we have quite a number of sales partners. As an example here, if you're in South Africa, we have Inomatic and IBC Solar. If you're in Kenya, we have CAT as well as Chloride Exide. If you're in Ghana, you have Tino Solutions. And if you're in Nigeria, we have Components. So, and also in Tanzania, we have Gadgetronics. Depending on your region, if you'd like to get in touch with any of us, so you can see here the regions that are supported by the three of us from West Africa, South Africa, as well as the Eastern African region. If you'd like to see the webinars that we have done before in the past, we have a YouTube channel dedicated for the Sub-Saharan African region. So you can access that YouTube playlist from this link, which is going to be shared with the webinar. And for direct communication with any of us, whether it's from Fronius International, you have the contact details here. For Cyprian, Byron, as well as myself, feel free to write to us or call us. And we are happy anytime to engage with you for any support. And with that, we have come to the end of our webinar today. So thank you very much for taking your time to be with us. And we hope you have enjoyed the webinar and gotten a lot of useful information. And until next time for the next webinar, goodbye for now.